We were not here when the heavens and the earth were created, so therefore we could not be the creators. We could not be the creators of the heaven and the earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is arguing or using an argument here to show the ignorance of a person who would claim that this thing came from nothing. One of the other noble scholars of Islam from centuries ago by the name of Al-Bayhaqi, he says this verse means look at the clear signs in the creation. Look at the clear signs in the creation. And this is because if you looked at the makeup of the universe with your sight and considered it with your intellect, you would discover it to be like a house that was constructed and stocked with all kinds of provisions. Now he's giving us an example now of the universe, and he's giving us a concrete idea here. Look at the universe as if it was a house that was constructed and stocked with all kinds of provisions. He says, so the sky was raised above the earth like a ceiling. The land of the earth has been spread out like a fine carpet with grass, shrubbery, all types of greenery in the earth has been laid out like a fine carpet. The stars and the constellations in the heavens have been made like lights or lamps that one uses to see his way through a home. And we know that many of the people of the past, most specifically, when they used to go on their ships, that they would use the constellations, the stars, as a map, as a guide, light at night, and a way to guide themselves towards their destinations. So these lamps in the sky, these stars were placed just like one would use the lamps in his home to navigate his way through his home, to see, to find the place that he needs to go. So these stars, Ikhwan, as we mentioned, these stars, as we had mentioned, are like the lamps of a home, as Imam al-Bayhaqi is saying in this particular statement of his. And then he says, and provisions have been stored up in the earth like food. He says, species of plants used for eating and clothing. So, for example, we know that cotton is grown for clothing. So we have been given even provisions to clothe ourselves, to cover ourselves. All of these things have been laid out for us in the earth. It's already been presented for us in the earth. We didn't create any of this. This was here, right? So then he says, and then we were given animals for riding and for eating. And he said, and man is like the head of this household. And then he says, and all of this is a clear-cut proof that the universe is created with a plan and an order. It is created with a plan and an order, and that plan and order has a wise planner who is complete in power, full of wisdom. There's also a beautiful story about one of the scholars of the past by the name of Abu Hanifa. And Abu Hanifa is one of the scholars of jurisprudence, Islamic jurisprudence, legal matters and the likes of this. And one time he was called to have a debate with an atheist. He was called to have a debate with an atheist, one who denied the existence of God. So Abu Hanifa purposely came a bit late. He purposely came a bit late, as is mentioned in the narration. It's reported that he purposely came a bit late. And when he got there, they were questioning why he was late. So he said, I was coming, but I came to a river. And when I came to that river, I had no raft. I had no way to cross that river. He said, but then after waiting for a while, a tree formed into the shape of a raft, fell into the water, and I rode on that raft across the water. So they laughed at him. The atheists laughed at him. He said, now you're going to sit here and try to tell me that a tree just became a raft out of nowhere. And he said, yeah. He said, but you're telling me, Abu Hanifa argues back, yeah, but you want to tell me that the heavens and the earth, the trees and the stars and the clouds and all of this came from nothing, but you won't believe that a raft came from nothing. It shows, this argument of Abu Hanifa shows the inferior argument of those who claim this ideology or belief of atheism. And I wanted to mention now from the well-known physicist of the 19th and 20th century, Albert Einstein, and I'll explain why I'm quoting Einstein in a second here. Albert Einstein is very famous amongst the scientists, and I mention this for a reason because there has become a common belief amongst the people nowadays that science and religion cannot coincide, that science and religion are at opposite poles. They are in opposition towards one another, science and religion. And they would have you believe also that all scientists therefore have to not believe in God because it does not coincide with what science proves, right? So Albert Einstein, who was the scientist, in other words, he's the scientist that other scientists look to and quote from and speak about so highly that Albert Einstein has become a figure in pop culture. very well known, a famous individual even outside of the realm of the world of science. Albert Einstein was asked, "Do you believe in God?" And he clarified very clearly, "I am not an atheist." He said, "The problem involved is too vast for our limited minds. We are in the position of a little child entering a huge library filled with books in many languages. The child knows someone has written those books. It does not know how. It does not understand the languages in which they were written. The child dimly suspects a mysterious order in the arrangement of the books, but doesn't know what it is. That, it seems to me, is the attitude of even the most intelligent human being towards God. We see the universe marvelously arranged and obeying laws, but we dimly understand these laws." So Albert Einstein is saying here that as a scientist and looking at the harmony of the heavens and the earth, that there is no way that I can say that there's not a God. He said, "I just can't say that. I cannot say that there's not a God. There has to be a God." And then he gives an example of a library that a child walks in. He sees all of these books. Child can't read French and Russian and Ukrainian and all of these different languages, but they know somebody had to have written those books. Somebody wrote those books. It's a library filled with books. Someone wrote the books. Someone put the books in the library, right? Arranged them in a certain order. So now you see a library, again, something that is so minute and small within our worldly realm. And now you compare that to the heavens and the earth in all of its order and structure, stars, moon, sun, everything flowing in its orbit, precisely as it should be. If the sun moved away from the earth more than it does, then the earth would turn to a ball of ice, dust, and vanish away. If it moved a bit closer, the earth would burn up and turn to dust. Everything in its orbit, everything precisely as it should be. All of this in its order and in its structure. And one wants to say that this came about by chance. Again, we quote from Albert Einstein, another quote. And he says, the fanatical atheists are like slaves who are still feeling the weight of their chains, which they have thrown off after hard struggle. They are creatures who, in their grudge against religion, as the opium of the masses they call religion, cannot hear the music in the spheres. So again, what Einstein is arguing here is that these atheists are like slaves. They're still feeling the weight of the chains from the time when they feel as though they were freed from religion, or like this. And he says, but they cannot hear the music, meaning they cannot see the structure in the orbit of the planets, the stars, the universe, and the likes of this. And then later on, he goes on to mention that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Now, Albert Einstein was not the only scientist to believe in God. Sir Francis Bacon, Pasteur, who found the bacteria in milk, all of these scientists believed in God. Jacques Cousteau, all of these scientists believed in God, and they argued against atheism. We're not claiming now that they were Muslims. That's not what we're trying to establish here. What we're establishing here is that these individuals refuted the idea that there was no God, and they also are scientists who these other scientists are claiming that a person who was truly a man of science could not believe in God. This is a fallacy and an incorrect assumption. Rather, if one was truly into science, understood science, he would understood that there's no way to understand science except through belief in God. To also show that science is not in contradiction with religion, during our Islamic history, the greatest time of discovery and exploration in the earth was in Spain, in Muslim Spain, which was called Andalus at that time, and also in Baghdad, the city of Baghdad during that time, when all types of discovery was found with regard to science and technology. Until the point where right now, today, you can see the effects, you can still see the effects of science and technology in the Muslim world, because if any of you go to school, you study algebra. Algebra comes from the word in Arabic, al-jabr. Al-jabr means that which breaks apart or splits. So algebra, that science of the splitting of numbers and symbols. That's where it comes from. It comes from Arabic. Those Muslim scholars who came up with algebra. Alcohol, al-kuhul. It begins with that alif lam or al, which is a definite article in the Arabic language. So even al-kuhul, for example, comes down to us from the Muslim scientists. Beakers and flasks, which we use in research, came from the Muslim world in Andalus in Spain during the same period that we're talking about. So all of this entered even the Renaissance itself, which they call the revival of the thought of intellect. This Renaissance came by way of Spain when the Muslims translated those books of science, and it entered into Europe through Muslim Spain.